I'm Terry Tamminen, the President and CEO, and I'd like to start by recognizing the AltaSea staff. Wow, what a team we've got here. Give them all a great big round of applause, please. All of this today is because of their years and years of hard work and, of course, hours and hours to put this program on today, so thank you. An incredible milestone event. And I also want to recognize, isn't this great on Ocean Day to have a tall ship from the past and the Pacific Six from the future of aquaculture right here. Please give a hand to Bruce Heyman of Lammy and Nick Hajek of Pacific Six. Captain Nick, where are you? Oh, hopefully he's on the vessel somewhere.
We're on board.
All right, thank you. And I know Bruce from LA Maritime is here somewhere. Where's Bruce? There he is right there. Thank you, Bruce, for giving us the ship. And if you want to know more about that vessel and its history and that design, he'll tell you. So I'd also like to just recognize, I mean, everybody here has had a hand in this. There truly is no way to say thank you to enough people for bringing all of this together today on this incredibly important moment we have today. But I want to recognize the AltaSea Board of Trustees. Particularly, I think we have in the house today Cynthia Hirschhorn. Is Cynthia here? Matt Horton, I think Matt's here somewhere. Raise your hand, please, if you can, so everybody knows who you are. Carolyn Hull. Eric Johnson, right here. Our great partner with Jericho Development and his whole Crail Johnson board, I believe, is here today, so thank you to them. They've been supporters since day one. Monique Johnson of Beneficial State Bank is here, I know. There you go. Dr. Melanie Lundquist, who is here. You're going to hear from her in a little bit. She and her husband, Richard, have been amongst our earliest and biggest supporters that made today possible. Tricia Ramos, the Dean of Workforce and Economic Development from Santa Monica College, is here. Did I miss any of our trustees who are in attendance? Yeah, Matt Horton is here. There, right. Very good. All right, don't be late. And of course, our keynote you're going to hear from in just a moment is Dr. Geraldine Natz, and who's our chair of our board. And I want to give a special shout out to Camilla Townsend, who is AltaSea's founding chair and a former harbor commissioner, the founder of Pola High, president of the Chamber of Commerce in the past, and of course a great teacher and principal. Please give her an incredible round of applause. Wave, please wave for those that don't know you. There you go, right there in front. And I'd also like to quickly recognize our harbor commissioners who are here today. This is very exciting. Diane Middleton is here with us. I think Ed Renwick was going to join us. Is Ed here? Not sure. And Lee Williams, are you here? Oh, there's Lee right there in the front. Very good. And another one of the newer commissioners, Michael Munoz. Michael, are you here? All right. Well, thank you all for coming. And we're going to be joined, I think, by Assemblymember Mike Gibson here shortly. I think his airplane may be landing at LAX. And one of our biggest supporters, and again, I don't want to just keep going through thanking everyone, or we're going to go to everyone here in the audience, but I do want to recognize Joe Buscaino. We wouldn't be sitting here without Joe. And we wouldn't be here without Elise Swanson of the San Pedro Chamber of Commerce. Where's Elise? Waving in the back. There she is. We wouldn't be here without Dan Pondella, the executive director of our founding partner, the Southern California Marine Institute. Dan, where are you? There he is in the back, standing up. Very good. And one of our earliest visionaries, Dr. Mark Gold. Mark, are you here somewhere? Did you make it? Oh, I think he's here somewhere. Well, it's now my pleasure to get the whole thing going here today by introducing our board chair, Geraldine Natz. She has so many accomplishments in public service, in academia, in port management and business, and as a historian and author. I can't possibly do it justice in this introduction. She was the executive director of the Port of Los Angeles, as you know, the first woman appointed to that job, and today she teaches engineering and public policy at USC. But you're going to find all of that on her Wikipedia page. So I thought to myself, what could I possibly say about Geraldine that you don't know? Well, she and I first met on opposite sides of an environmental lawsuit when she worked at the Port of Long Beach 25 years ago. But she was nevertheless magnanimous enough to support hiring me at AltaSea. But kidding aside, we resolved that dispute and improved the environment by working together. And that's what shows you a lot about her, that she's the ultimate creative problem solver. She's also a great storyteller, as her many books about the port communities will confirm. So you're in for a real treat as we welcome to the microphone to set the stage for today's groundbreaking, Dr. Geraldine Nance.
Thank you, Terry. I am so pleased to see so many here to help celebrate this momentous occasion in the evolution of AltaSea. And so I guess I have to tell a story. And I'm going to truthfully admit that those of us back at the port in 2006 were not sitting around thinking about how we could create an AltaSea. No. We were sitting around thinking about how we could shoehorn more rail facilities on Terminal Island. And there was this laboratory, the Southern California Marine Institute, in the way of our grandiose thinking. Could we move them someplace else? And I can remember learning there were only 8 people working on this entire city pier, City Dock number 1. So we took the SCMI researchers over to this dock, and their eyes bugged out of their heads. So the port gave SCMI, with USC in the lead, a small planning grant to come up with a concept on how to use berth 57, the warehouse over here. And about the same time, I got a call from a man named Leonard Albee from the Annenberg Foundation. I didn't know Len at all, but we hit it off because after talking for like 30 minutes, we realized we were both scuba divers in our formative years. So he asked me if I would come up and give a talk to a group at his office, and I agreed. And then when I learned I had to drive up the 405 to Century City, find a place to park, probably walk a mile from my car to where I was going to give the talk, I thought, okay, I'm going to wear my walking shoes, which was code for my ugly and comfortable shoes. So I get to the conference room where I'm to present, and I see the audience is all women. And I thought, oh, I'm going to love this. So Len asked them to introduce themselves, and they start, Mrs. Wallace Annenberg, Mrs. Michael Eisner, Mrs. Norris. And I looked down at my feet, and this is the honest truth. I thought, oh, my God, why didn't I wear my good shoes? So I had to pull myself together, feet up under the table, and focus on the port, not my fashion faux pas. So the next day, Len Albee called me, and he said, Mrs. Annenberg was interested in that comment you made about giving a planning grant for a study to move SCMI from Terminal Island to the San Pedro waterfront. She wanted to match the grant, and she did. And after that study was done, I reported back to Len Albee with a plan for berth 57, and he said, that's nice. Think bigger. And actually, Tony Michaels was at USC Wrigley at that time, and he said, that's nice, think like an entrepreneur. And while others were thinking, what is she thinking? So, boy, did we ever think bigger, and we came up with a plan for the entire city dock. And I think I probably went a little overboard in preparing for that final presentation. I practiced it before the mayor's office. I practiced it before some of the harbor commissioners. And everybody said to me, quit worrying. You're not going to go give a presentation and then somebody's going to call you up the next day and say, we're giving you millions of dollars. You're going to have to, you might not hear anything for months. Well, okay. So the morning of the presentation to Wallace Annenberg, the port staff member who was coming with me from public relations to manage the AV showed up in the office with a note from his daughter. You see, he had taken the presentation home with him and showed it to his daughter, who was just finishing high school. He handed me the note. I opened the note. It said, can I get a job at AltaSea? And of course, it wasn't called AltaSea then. And I thought, wow, just by looking at a PowerPoint, we've already inspired one kid's future career. We may really be onto something. And the advice I got from the people who sat through my practicing of my sessions was, right, nobody called me the next day. No, Len called me the same day as soon as I got back to the office. Annenberg is donating millions of dollars. And that was the first substantial grant that helped get us to where we are today. Annenberg helped create the organization that became AltaSea. And that kid who looked at the PowerPoint, she went on to get her PhD, and she now works for the Southern California Coastal Water Research Project. But we had a long pathway ahead of us. I was thrilled when we pushed the first lease for AltaSea over the finish line. Okay, maybe we rushed. It was different than the usual things the port did. It was my last board meeting, and I wanted to make sure it happened. This item was not getting held over. Consequently, the lease had some challenges in implementation, like running the high hurdles. We were lucky at that time. Tim McOsker, our CEO, recognized that to make the nonprofit sustainable, our agreement with the port needed some fixing. And there was no better person that could have handled that but our own Mr. Fix-It, Tim McOsker. He shepherded lease changes through the Board of Harbor Commissioners, but his ideas about how to move that project forward and modify our lease would not have gotten off the ground without the support of the port, its staff, especially Mike Galvin, its Board of Harbor Commissioners, and of course, its director, Gene Soroka. All of these people had to sign off on that. So this strong working relationship between the port and AltaSea has withstood the test of time, and we have created a partnership that other ports envy and now want to copy. Well, Tim left us to go on to fixing bigger things, like Los Angeles, and we found our new CEO, Terry Tamminen, the man who was ranked by The Guardian #1 in the top 50 people who can save the planet. We had found someone who could fix the world, a perfect fit for AltaSea. And Terry has taken AltaSea to a new level while building our international reputation. Now companies around the world are asking us, are coming here and approaching us. And I have to tell you, Terry is golden. He can call you up and ask you for $1 million. And even if you don't have it, you say, yes, Terry, because you feel his passion and you know he's going to deliver. So Wallace Annenberg got us started, but Melanie and Richard Lundquist kept us going. It wasn't always easy. We have been blessed with donors that are captivated by our mission. Eric Johnson, one of our West Harbor developers, a donor and an AltaSea board member, put his heart and soul into helping plan the campus and the contract being signed here today. So of course, we are far from done. We still need to raise money now for Berth 57. We still need to get SCMI off Terminal Island, and over to San Pedro. Dan Pondelli, you're finally moving to the top of the list. So I have to say, if Terry calls you, please pick up. This brings us to today. People no longer ask, will this project get off the ground? No. Today the question is, have you got space for me? The people I mentioned and many, many more got us to this point today. And even though some of us have been in and out of this project, I was thrilled when Eric invited me 6 years ago to come back to the board. There's been one constant, and that constant is Jenny Caruso. Jenny says about herself, I never give up, and she never did. She was the glue that held AltaSea together for over a decade, and were it not for her, we might not be here today. For me, today is like a dream come true. I thank all of you for letting me continue to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Geraldine. I told you she's a good storyteller, and how to weave all of that together. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That really is fantastic. Give her another round of applause. Well deserved. You know, some years ago, and she talked about inspiration of young people. Some years ago, a little girl in Gibbstown, New Jersey, spent hours by the pond in her backyard collecting tadpoles and making notes about what she saw. I'm speaking of what became the great oceanographer Sylvia Earle. She realized her dreams to go beneath the water to see what was under the surface and explore the blue. And at 87, she's still doing it. But she started with that inspiration from nature, learning, and by getting her hands wet. And that's what AltaSea is all about, inspiring this generation and the next to understand and appreciate the ocean, not just on Ocean Day, but all the time, and to make sure they understand that it is the ocean that makes life possible on planet Earth, and to innovate solutions to our climate and sustainability challenges that harness all the wonder and abundance that the ocean has to offer. As Geraldine said, we're at a very exciting moment in the history of AltaSea, and we want you, our closest partners on this amazing voyage, to know that we're still actively raising funds. As she said, I'm going to be calling you to complete the construction of all 4 of these historic warehouses and to fully fund the critical scientific research, business development, education, and workforce development programs that take place here every day at our facilities already. And of course, there's a lot more work and more fundraising to be done, so please talk to me at any time, or Jenny, who you now all know if you didn't before, to any of our trustees. That's why I had you wave your hand so that they would all know who to come talk to our good friend Jonathan Aubrey of Aubrey & Co. Wherever Jonathan is, raise your hand so people know where to come and talk to you and find ways to get involved. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my predecessor, Councilman Tim McOsker. When I first met Tim, he warned me that it takes a long time to be accepted in Pedro. But he assured me it was such a great community and so many caring, loving people whose lives are inseparable from the port that working to gain trust here was worth the effort. Well, he was right. The food at the Dalmatian American Club was fantastic. So now I'd like to let him tell his side of this story. Please welcome Councilman Tim McOsker.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you very much, Terry. I think you'll get there in about 30 or 40 years. We'll begin to accept you. Geraldine, Dr. Nats, thank you for that summation of how we got here. I want to let everyone know, if you're not in the front row and if you haven't noticed, Geraldine is wearing really great shoes. So she must think a lot of you. She must think a lot of you. In fact, I haven't seen this much sort of power and authority and strength in the port since, I don't know, I saw Gary Herrera having breakfast alone yesterday. At least one guy in the audience got that one. This is so wonderful. This is so great to come home to AltaSea. And the story that brought me to AltaSea really goes through, as everything at AltaSea does, through Jenny Crusoe. I mean, Jenny was the one who sat down with me early on and pitched me on being the attorney for AltaSea and doing what Dr. Nats described, reworking the lease. And I remember walking out of that meeting after hearing about what the lease looks like, where the port is situated, what the challenges are, and I had my then associate with me, Char Patibanda, who many of you know. And I remember as I walked out of the room, under my breath, I said, "There's no way we are taking this job." And Char actually said, and this is a true story, Char turned to me and said, "Boss, that lady promised this gentleman, Leonard Abe, before he passed, that this project would get done. She promised him. It's kind of your obligation to take this on." And she was serious, and it sort of struck me. It struck me that this was, at that time in my life, and at this time in my life, it struck me as AltaSea being an opportunity for us here in the harbor area, but beyond the harbor area, an opportunity for us to think about the future of the planet, to do those things that are absolutely necessary to preserve the opportunities for our kids and our kids' kids and their kids off into the future, but at the same time, to make sure that we are creating this blue economy, that we are expanding the blue economy and opportunities in the ocean for the future. We know how important the jobs are in the port, and we're going to fight to protect those jobs every single day. And today they're dominated, as they should be, by transportation, by goods movement, by construction, and we're going to fight hard to make sure we hang on to every single one of those jobs, and we're going to advance those jobs. But at the same time, as our kids come up, there are other opportunities for work in and around the ocean. There are other opportunities to expand the blue economy, and that's going to be creating sustainable proteins for the future, creating energy sources for the future, mapping the ocean, finding out what this exploration will bring to the next generation, because we don't know. I often tell folks, when I was a kid, we looked to the heavens, and it was all about astronauts. It was all about getting to the moon. It was all about figuring out how we get to space and how we get back from space. And the indirect effects of that created things, and I know I've told many of you this story, created things that we never dreamed possible. And we don't know what actually looking to our inner space, the ocean, will bring in the future. We hope it's going to bring answers to sustain the planet. We expect it will. It must. If it doesn't, we won't. But it's also going to create opportunities for jobs and for new medicines and new foods and just a new way of living, because we owe that to the future. And AltaSea is just such a great opportunity for us to not only save the planet, but to advance our communities. And a lot of you know, because I know all of you so well, that I don't represent the 15th district. I represent the 1-5. And why do we say I represent the 1-5? Because we are one district, 5 beautiful, deserving communities. I not just represent San Pedro, proudly, and Wilmington, and Harbor City, and Harbor Gateway, and Watts. Each community wonderfully deserving. Each community, everything I do and everything my staff does every day, every way, needs to inure to the benefit of every part of the community. And every one of our 5 beautiful, deserving communities, AltaSea does that too. I am so impressed and so excited and doubling down and tripling down on AltaSea being committed to Watts and being committed to the Gateway and being committed to Wilmington and Harbor City, and making sure that those jobs and those opportunities come to the entire district. And obviously, very obviously, the most important goal we have, to preserve the planet and to protect the environment for our children. It inures to the benefit of all of Los Angeles, all the region, and all the world. So I could not be more proud to have played a little small part being wedged between the great Leonard Abe and the great Terry Tamminen. Just kind of kept the lights on until Terry could come over. So thank you, God bless you, and I'm so happy for today.
Thank you, Tim, and you obviously did a lot more than that. Thank you so much. And I just have to also say thank you. You know, when you became a city councilman, I know what it is to get into office. I've served, obviously, governors and others that you're being pulled in many, many different directions every single day. But I can tell you, whenever I text or email this man, he answers right away. So obviously, he's still taking care of AltaSea, still cares about it, as he said, because of all the things that it can do for this entire community. And we are proud to serve this entire community, and frankly, to take advantage of people that have been here that have this knowledge about the maritime economy, about goods movement, about fishing and food preservation, canning, and so on and so forth, that some of those industries have moved off, and we're going to revive them with these modern, new blue technologies and economies. So thank you. Let's give Tim another great big round of applause. It's now my pleasure to introduce our Port of Los Angeles Executive Director, Gene Soroka. Gene is another one with a very unique and long resume, which again you can read on Wikipedia, but to highlight that he's the perfect person to be leading the nation's busiest port. He lived in Shanghai, Jakarta, Singapore, and Dubai. He really understands global trade and cultures, and he told one reporter that his passport was so thick it doesn't fit in his pocket anymore. So we're very honored that he's here today. Thank you so much for coming. Gene, please come up and share us your thoughts.
Thanks, Terry. And what a treat it is to be here today. And I'm so honored to be part of this occasion among such a growing family representing AltaSea. Geraldine Natz, you had a vision going all the way back to 2007. You wanted to utilize these facilities that had been dormant for so long in a great location that you called a campus of innovation, a new home for the Southern California Maritime Institute, and hopefully so many more. And now today, after all these milestones, all these years, we're about to celebrate the groundbreaking for this main section of the AltaSea campus that's been written up by historians and architects and so many others that we've watched over the years. And Geraldine, your vision of AltaSea has attracted so much attention and energy beyond that. Here we consider ourselves the nation's #1 trade gateway, but I can't think of any venture more important and central to the heart of this port, because innovation drives what we do. We brag every day that we're 7,500 acres of a test lab with the entire Pacific Ocean in front of us. Councilman Tim McCosker, you were the CEO of AltaSea that's just been covered ad nauseum for a number of years. And your story to get here and pass that baton on is going to be legendary. We'd all like to thank you in what you did to build AltaSea, reshape it, and put it on a pathway for success. During COVID, you and I were on Zoom calls from your backyard to my backyard, just trying to figure out a way to fashion this thing. And you did. We're forever indebted to you. Now that you're the councilman, of the 1-5, we've got more and bigger things to do to help support this great facility. And it's safe to say that treasures like this are going to be the center points of the 1-5 that you can bring folks to and get them to be part of this family going forward. And lastly, I want to acknowledge someone who deserves every accolade that she can receive because of the faith and tendency of Jenny Crusoe. As the founding executive director and a daily force of nature behind the spirit and evolution of this monumental concept, I can remember sitting in your office overlooking the port complex back in 2014 and just saying, this is what we see, this is the vision, and this is how it's going to be. And you never stopped. Relentless would be an understatement to get to this day. You are truly the backbone of this operation, and so congratulations on the culmination of all your work. And I know there's much more to do, but it's time to take just a moment to celebrate. Yes, celebrate where we've gotten to today. AltaSea touches so many areas, and yet we're still only scratching the surface of its full potential. Take Project Blue, for example. In a nation challenged to boost STEM learning, Project Blue engages students in marine science and technology, sparking their curiosity and shining a light down the pathway to jobs in the blue economy. And that's just the starting point. The bigger picture is that AltaSea, through its many tenants and partners, will help make the port and city of Los Angeles a global point of convergence for the blue economy. All the students who pass through these doors will carry so much knowledge with them and that great sense of pride. All those who come back that will put that knowledge to work as teachers, scientists, and entrepreneurs are going to be the backbone of what AltaSea has for the future. Since the beginning of civilization, ports have always been more than just docks and ships. They've been gateways for new ideas and opportunities. There's a port called Bilbos in the eastern Mediterranean that's been in constant operation for more than 5,000 years. Think about that for a moment. What's passed through that port over the millennia is a lot more than just grain and paper, more than spices and wine. What Bilbos has helped facilitate was the exchange of knowledge of distant cultures and ideas, the proliferation of mathematics, science, and philosophy all at the same time. That's just as true for the Port of Los Angeles, right here, our home. This complex is a wonder of engineering and global logistics, but our sights are now set on sustainability, resilience, supply chain decarbonization, and capitalizing on the institutional knowledge we have right here at home with the greatest workforce on the face of the earth. Those are all concepts that have transcended tradition in the maritime supply chain realm, and we're noticed for that every day. Their successes will require more knowledge and engagement from a broader cross-section of stakeholders, and nowhere in this port is the exchange of knowledge ever going to be more present than it is right here where we stand today. In this new century, it's clear that we are changing the future of oceans, and we're doing that because our oceans will need to sustain future generations. That's why we're here today. AltaSea is sparking the blue economy through innovation, economic growth, and jobs creation. You are inspiring the new generation of game changers with the call to create a more sustainable, just, and equitable world for all of us. With this groundbreaking, we're expanding the foundation of what you're building, an organization that will bring the emerging future into being right here. We can't wait to see what's next and what you will show us, but we know it will be great. Thank you for the privilege of being here today.
Thank you so much. We are so lucky to have you at the helm of the port. And to be here today, I happen to know that you were telling the world about goods movement this morning at 5:30 in the morning on television, and we'll probably be doing it still at 11 o'clock at night in international time zones. So one more time, a round of applause for our great executive director of the Port of Los Angeles. Well, to close out our remarks before we get to these shovels in the ground, it's really my pleasure now to introduce our AltaSea trustee and activist philanthropist, Dr. Melanie Lundquist. Melanie and her husband, Richard, made a significant $5 million commitment to AltaSea when we needed it most. She leans in as a member of our board of trustees in every way, advocating for us literally every day and literally all over the country. She just hosted me and Laura Turner-Seidel and other environmental advocates in Atlanta, took us all the way across the country to preach the gospel of AltaSea and the blue economy. She's fearless and limitless in her energy, I can tell you that, and I'm grateful for her support of AltaSea and her always open phone line for advice or encouragement. And she'll tell it like it is. I'm sure those of you that have spent any time with Melanie, you appreciate that too, and I certainly do. So please welcome my good friend, Dr. Melanie Lundquist.
My husband agrees with everything you said, Terry. Thank you very much, Terry, really. And I want to thank you for your leadership of AltaSea and getting us and bringing us here today for this very important milestone. I also, I know Geraldine mentioned about the 1 in 50. I have another wonderful statistic about Terry. Terry is part of a very small and special group, 0.005% in all of LA, as a matter of fact. What does that really mean? It was just announced this week that he is a member of the Los Angeles Business Journal LA's 500 list, meaning that, Terry, you are one of the 500 most influential people in LA County. Obviously, this is why Terry's leadership is putting AltaSea on the map, because he's truly a leader. I think if you looked up leadership in Webster's dictionary, you might see Terry's face. To my very good friend, LA City Councilman Tim McCosker, thank you for your commitment to AltaSea. When Tim was CEO, that's when Richard and I made our significant commitment to AltaSea. So let me speak about that just a little bit. Rich and I are very proud to be the second largest individual donors to AltaSea. We are behind a titan in philanthropy. Thank you. We are behind a titan in philanthropy and someone who is very, very much a personal inspiration to me, and that would be Wallace Annenberg. Together, we believe AltaSea is the innovation that will end up helping to save this planet. And boy, does it need to be saved. AltaSea is where sustainability meets the ocean and the blue economy creates careers for our young people. I've often said that in the past, you know, we've had the invention of the automobile and you know, the light bulb, the telephone, all those things. And then it was technology and the tech industry. And then it was the green economy. And now this new frontier, it's the blue economy. And today's groundbreaking and the renovation of these 100+ year-old historic warehouses is a crucial step forward for AltaSea. These improved warehouses will become the home to more cutting-edge advances that will address climate change and preserve our oceans. Richard and I are thrilled to be here and join all of you, especially AltaSea's board chair, Geraldine Natz, and the head of the Port of Los Angeles, Jean Soroka. Thank you both for your leadership. Nothing else is anything, let me say that again, nowhere else is anything like this happening except at AltaSea. We really do believe that AltaSea's very best days are ahead of us. Thank you. Now let's break ground.
1, 2, 3, turn.